All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire show. Hey, listen, got a great guest here today. You're going to really enjoy Melissa, and we're going to talk to you right after this video. You got to love that intro, isn't it? That music is intense. I get it from the
fever. The fact that my picture was not on the guest photo.
Oh, it wasn't on there?
No.
No, it should have been right on there on the bottom, but
that's okay. Here I am, and you can see my face.
That's right. Hey, everybody. The reason I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and I really, when Melissa's profile stood out is she's got so many years in staffing agency and everything that she does. I think you've been in the staffing industry for quite some time, but I want to introduce her, Melissa Thibodeaux.
Thibodeaux.
I told you I would mess it up. I didn't put it on there. Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself and what you do?
Okay. So I'm Melissa Thibodeaux. The H is silent. In December of 2018, I started my own consulting firm, and since then I've been consulting with staffing agencies who, for one reason or another, are their growth may be stagnating, or they have other gaps in their operations that they need assistance with, or maybe they need an RFP written really well. So I have been consulting for the last almost 3 years, and it's been extremely rewarding. It is my passion.
That's what you were saying when we were talking about that. Now you have to start out though. Where do you live? Come on, it's got to be nice and hot where you're at right now.
So I see your ticker going across, and I do not live in Pensacola. I live close, but it's Perdido Key, Florida. Yeah. I live on the beach between the Intercoastal and the Gulf, on a key, Perdido Key.
Wow, I'll tell you what, I'd like to have.
I paid my dues to get here, though, man.
I can imagine. I wanted to start out with just questions. The reason, I was looking, and we were talking about like staffing trends that I was talking to you about. Mm-hmm. Do you see anything? We always say the same thing with COVID. Everybody gives us the same thing: COVID, but it's here to stay. It's been. How do you see the trends marketing now versus the way it was prior to COVID?
Oh, that's a really broad question. The first thing that comes to mind is something that you and I were speaking about earlier, and when they sent everybody home to work virtually, you had a lot of recruiters and executive recruiters popping up, doing business on their own. So that's pretty saturated right now. That segment, I believe. Right now, the biggest challenge that staffing agencies are facing is finding candidates. Yeah. The unemployment rate has dropped to the lowest since the pandemic. I think it said pre-pandemic, actually. I'm not sure. Right. But, people still aren't working, and they are being extremely finicky. And I think that's going to go on for quite a while. The other thing is, the skilled trades and those that have a skill that is much needed in rebuilding our economy. They're so in demand because we have such a shortage of them. And that's not going to get any better for quite a while, I don't believe.
I even said that with everything I've been listening to about the manufacturing, we're getting a lot of manufacturing back, and that trend's right there. But I'm tired of saying the same thing, like having a problem and not solving it. I'm tired of saying COVID. I'm just tired of it. Listen, it's here. Now you have to figure out a strategy, a plan. And to get, I've said that even if the unemployment does come back, say September, where they're saying the stimulus, I still believe you're going to have the same problems. It's not going to just like rebound, like, oh, wow, September 6th comes around. Now you found everybody. It's not, and like you said, skill trades is going to be the hardest thing to reach.
Well, the U.S. already had a significant deficit in the skill trades, because for decades, high school counselors have been saying, go to college, go to college, go to college. And that's a great thing. Both my kids have college degrees and I'm not knocking it, but we need to start talking about, because you can make as much money or more right out of trade school or technical school than you can out of college. Right. And long term, you can make just as much or more than a college educated person. And I think, it's not a gap, it's a chasm. Actually, we had a problem with that before COVID. Yep. And this is one of my big things is, that gap and the fact that we've got to fill it. And people have got to start talking about it and what are we going to do about it, and hitting it from multiple angles. There's no silver bullet on that one.
That's what I did, because I grew up in that industry. After the military, went right in manufacturing with my parents, and it wasn't even an issue then at James River. We went in there, we bid the jobs. You didn't have to know it, but on the machines, they trained you. It's simple. Right. You had 2 weeks to learn it, and you got the job. And now I try to figure out how to get, like in the Lehigh Valley over here, logistics are in the thousands of jobs opening.
Yeah, that's a big.
It is. And how do you get the people? Not everybody wants to work in logistics.
Not everybody wants to work.
That's true. All right. Oh, I have to introduce you to Tuvia. He's in Miami, Florida. Tuvia handles a lot. What I like about Tuvia is he's got, that what's up. I always say what's up, but he's got it down of recruiting to where he's in Florida, but he recruits for New York. Mm-hmm. Just by building his groups on there, and he just posts jobs for companies at a small fee, and it just continues on. That's all he does. They reach out.
Yeah, I mean that's a big gap that a lot of agencies have, is that they don't know how to write job ads. I mean, and if you write a bad job ad, the competition is writing good job ads. And so
thank you.
Where are you going to go to? Are you going to go to the one that's more visually appealing and sounds, like it would be, you would be bringing value? Or are you going to go to the one that has 5 sentences that says, you got to have this, this, and this, apply here?
That's it. You're a friend for life, because I've been trying to say that, because on all the job boards, there's no effort, and I believe that you can sell the company versus the hourly rate. I would like to have them start out what it's all about, then put the hourly rate at the bottom, because Tuvia asked here, college doesn't make you more marketable.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And then many companies are looking for experience over a piece of paper. Piece of paper. So I agree with that. The next question, we talked about it earlier today, is culture development and customer service. Mm-hmm. Culture development, can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. I think that there is an evolution to many companies that have resisted building, because it's a lot of work to build, a culture, a thriving culture. We're seeing an evolution toward companies finally getting it, that their culture, because employee engagement is linked to culture. And, culture development starts at the job ad. So it's just a big cycle, so you start at the job ad. Onboarding is so important. And having a dynamic onboarding program. And then, for the first 90 days, you stick, not like glue, but you give them a mentor or a buddy or somebody. And, whoever placed them at that location, if they're a staffing agency, needs to check in really frequently just to let them know they're cared about.
That's what we had those mistakes over. I wish I could reverse time. And I told you that. But with so many companies we didn't think of it, to make that call, to see how they're doing, because we were so busy. But if I had to reverse it, I say we could have saved candidates if we would have reached out to them. Absolutely.
I mean, so many times in my corporate staffing career, commercial staffing, the recruiters would start to see a decline in a candidate that they worked so hard to find. And I would coach the recruiters how to save it. It is salvageable at some point, but there's a small window.
Right.
Salvage that relationship with that employee. And if they're good, they're going to be, recruited by several other locations, and they can really go anywhere, So you've got to be on it and keep them engaged with you and everything, and make sure you address issues before things do hit rock bottom.
I want to ask you about the culture. To me, culture is, like I try to talk to the companies, when you're saying that, it's more about, like, say on social media, it's more about what you care about with the company. It doesn't have to be a posting of a job, but it can be an image of lunches, image of promotions, shaking hands, image of things within the company. Is that what are we kind of on the same page there when it comes to culture? Or
I think that's one puzzle piece. But when you think of Apple, okay, let's just use them as an example.
Right.
They project this image of, well, what do you think of when you think of Apple? Progressiveness, technology,
Right.
all of the things that are. So a culture starts there with the branding and those things, but it's what your employees say, and it's what your employees are experiencing while they're at work. It's, they have to feel valued. There has to be a culture of, of valuing every single employee, from the janitor all the way up to the CEO. And those are just a couple puzzle pieces. I mean, there's just so many layers to culture, but it is critically important.
And that's where I told you about when you said before the job postings. Wow, I hit it all the time when you said that. I wish they would put more effort into, instead of, even if it's a $15 to $17 job and everybody in this area is paying that. I believe when they don't advertise for that company, they don't know who it is. And I always use Coke and Pepsi as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows who Coke and Pepsi are, but if you're a staffing company and you're not saying it and getting permission from the client, to me, it's like they don't know. You're just saying this is what they're paying, this is the shift, nothing else.
Nothing else. And that's, I was talking about that big SOP manual I just got finished writing for my client. And I put a couple of really what I believe to be good job ad templates. There's so many things to that, make it personal, make the culture sound fun, and that you do fun things, and you're rewarded for your efforts, and in the ad, it starts, when they see the title on Indeed or wherever you're advertising, that's where it starts.
Where it starts on there. All right. My next one is my favorite. I know my favorite topic is the social media and how to utilize it correctly. To get that message off. What do you see a lot of companies? Do you see them not utilizing it yourself? Do you have to discuss that with them and say, listen, you need more presence on different platforms?
So I think more and more are getting there. And if you don't have a presence on social media, I mean, that's very worrisome. But, positioning yourself or your company as an expert in what you do on social media,
right,
and continually posting things that are relevant to your industry and what your goals and your mission statement mean, and all of those things. And, doing that with high frequency.
right.
And not just pictures with words. I mean, videos, you've got to do it and build that brand and have a presence and position yourself as the expert in what you do. You're not just a company, you're a resource, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you're a resource, and that's the way you need to position yourself. I mean, every staffing agency wants to be a consultative resource.
Right.
But not all of them are positioning themselves that way on social media or out on the streets.
Well, that's what I mean. Like with manufacturing, I'm sorry, a lot of people don't understand manufacturing. It's hard to get it out there. But I always say, make up some videos of what your job is. Be out on that floor, take a small video and say, this is what we're doing, because a lot of candidates don't realize even what manufacturing is. I have 2 companies here. I really like them, Bakerly and EchoPack, because I like manufacturing. And these are the first 2 companies that I visited. What's that?
I do too.
Yeah. And you like them?
Yeah, I love manufacturers.
Yeah. And it's when you walk in there, it's not just the logistics. You got to use, I always tell everybody, just think of it. We like to fix things. You like rewarding when your machine's running and you fine tune it. I always enjoyed it. But trying to get that.
I love seeing how things are made. Like, how do you do this? And it never fails to, surprise me that from A to Z is that,
Right. It's fun. Like Bakerly, when I went there, they make bread and all these, bread products, but the smell of a bakery when you walk in there and these thousands of rolls are coming off, thousands, kept at a certain temperature, but it's rewarding. And I wish people would stand up and stand out and show people, give tours to the candidates. I believe in letting the candidates come in, let them see the job. We used to do that, but now everybody's so busy. I just believe in this way. You walk them around. At the end, you say, hey, do you like this or not? And that's my belief there. So
it's so interesting that you bring that up, because before I left the commercial staffing world, I wrote an employee engagement program that could be implemented company-wide. I don't know what they did with it, but one of the aspects that I implemented in my area was just that, because it's been a candidate market for quite a while. It's, on steroids now, but if you can get them in your office, in your staffing office, and you can show them a video of the company from the front door into, the spot where you'll be working, along with perhaps the supervisor saying, hi, I'm, John Smith, and I'll be your supervisor, and I'm so looking forward to meeting you. And I mean, that goes so far. I mean, the problem is that a lot of manufacturers have, proprietary technology and those kinds of things, and they won't really let you pass the front door. But if you can just get into the foyer and talk to a couple of people, I mean, if you can get them agree to that, I mean, it makes tangible the job, and your no-call, no-shows will plummet. I mean, they feel connected to that, to that company and that supervisor.
That is totally makes sense, Sarah. And that's why I said I'm on the same page with you. That's why I wish companies would. And I always try, I believe in educating the client. I think if you're honest with them, listen, why don't you want to tell the company that, even if you don't have them yet as a client, say, this is what we can do. And that's why I just believe being honest. It doesn't make sense being honest, but it goes a long way.
Absolutely. Transparent.
When you said about when consulting, you go into a company and you know what you're looking for, what you're going to train. Do you find candidates or salespeople, anybody that pushes back at you, or no, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, or how do you get your message across to the client, I should say?
So are you talking about once the they've signed the contract and we're working together.
Yeah, because we used to have consultants come years and years ago, and we liked it because it was a person coming in. Wow, they really knew something, new ideas.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen a pretty big variety of that, from, I don't want to say, but those that have been in the industry for decades and think they know everything and are very resistant to embracing the technology side, to all the way to people that are your biggest cheerleaders, because you've helped them, or I've helped them, and it's changed the way that they do things, and therefore they're doing much better than they were before. So it just depends on the person. And yes, pushback happens a lot. And being face-to-face is not easy. There's an art to it. And quite frankly, when I started in the industry, I was not great at it. But I'm so customer centric that I knew that if I did not, get buy-in and get them operating the way that I needed them to, and buy into what I was selling, that we would not be successful. And
did you find it better? Did you find it's like one-on-one, maybe meet with a team, or how do you start that process out? Because a team is great. You can all sit there and come up with ideas and talk, but then when the meeting's over, it's done. It seems like that's where it ends. But if I kind of say that quiet person, they have some kind of information that they could, give you some really good insights.
Are you, so let me make sure I understand your question. So you're asking if I do it in groups or one-on-one, both?
Both.
It happens both ways. It depends on, what the needs are. I feel very strongly about getting to know major team members and what they have to say and the feedback they have to give. And all of those conversations are strictly confidential. And then I formulate, and that's, the person who contracts with me, the leader, the CEO or whoever it is, I formulate a strategy and I come back to them with recommendations based on, what I've uncovered. That's
what it have to be. You said it correctly. Not calling out somebody, if you're learning.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not ethical, really. And
that's what I mean there.
Yeah.
All right. I love this saying that you had. How do you feel to attract and maintain the candidates right now with everything going on? What do you tell companies? Is there like a magic? I know there's not a magic pill to say, hey, do this, do that. But like you said, it's a lot of multiple different things.
So, there's, like I said earlier, there's no silver bullet, so it's got to be a culmination of all the things we've been talking about. It's like, it's like a merry-go-round. They all have to work in tandem, and, and some companies, just want, to fill in this gap that they have, and that perhaps they have a good culture program going on and they feel really good about this, but they're struggling with this piece of it. So, sometimes I go in and work on with that one piece. But I think the first part of your question was the candidates and keeping them, or
retaining, like retention and
retention.
We're saying.
Well, again, it's all about talent engagement. 100%. Especially in this environment. They can go anywhere they want. People are desperate. They're doing $500 sign-on bonuses for people that are making $12, $13 an hour, because they are so desperate. So they know that they're in high demand, and so they can go anywhere. So, holding on to them starts at the job ad, through the interview process, through the screening process, and into onboarding. Onboarding is probably, one of the most important things that happen. Think about it. If you walk into a company that you're going to work for and they are unorganized and they don't know where this is and they don't know who you're supposed to talk to next and what's your impression? What do you think?
They all say, I hear it back from the candidates, they feel you see a number. That's a big thing when they always say, we're just a number. We're just a number. They don't care. They want to get the job. They want to get how many, package to be picked, everything like that. And that's why a lot of them say when I get calls, they quit because I don't know what to say to them. We're just a number.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, well, for me, that perception, if you walk into a company and that onboarding process is really unorganized and they don't have their act together on that, you feel like, what's the rest of the job going to be like? Are they not going to know what I'm going to, you just kind of, it doesn't leave a good perception to start off on the first day or prior to that, all that onboarding paperwork that has to be done or it's mostly done electronically now, but, they need to be able to reach back out to you if they have a question and you respond and positively and make sure that they understand that you're there to help them and you make their experience as efficient as possible.
All right, this question here, I like your analyze and maximize efficiency process optimization. Explain what that is.
Okay.
And some people don't know what that is. I don't know it all. I've never really dealt with that.
So you have a process for, let's say, onboarding. You have a process that the recruiter follows. So let's, if he or she, the recruiter, is not following that process, it's going to lead to a lack of efficiency and this recruiter not being able to onboard or hire or source as many people as he or she could, were she following that process. So optimizing the process is making sure that everything's optimal and that it's, that you're maximizing those efficiencies and the SOPs and, all of those things. That's what, in a nutshell, that's what process optimization is. And there's a lot more to it than that. In some cases, it's a simple fix, but in a lot of cases, it's not a simple fix. And
I know what you're saying there, because when we had like 5 recruiters, everybody did things differently.
Oh no.
I knew and that's where I said, what, I wish I could rewind and change something, because if everybody did the same thing like you were supposed to, it would really work better than one person not doing this one. It's all over the place.
Well, the issue is, and it's not really a problem, but everybody is their own person and everybody is going to want to do things with their own flair to it or whatever. And there's a fine line between making them adhere to that process and letting them do it, putting their spin on it to a certain degree, because they're human. I mean, they I would hate to be in a sweatshop recruiting machine, and them wanting me to do A, B, C, D the same way over and over and over. I mean, I think most people feel that way. So you've got to optimize the processes without making your people feel that they are in a sweatshop. And you can't deviate from this in any way. I mean, because you're also dealing with a human commodity. Right. So that process, does have to deviate sometimes. So optimizing the process is adding room and processes for processes. What happens if this happens, and giving them the ability to be themselves, but giving them strategic answers and plans for what if.
And what if. I like how you said from the bullpen to the boardroom. I kept I was reading that over and over. What does she mean by that? From the bullpen to the boardroom.
So you've never heard of the bullpen?
No, I guess not, because bullpen, I'm like, what the heck is the bullpen?
So the bullpen is where all the recruiters sit.
Oh, okay. All right.
Every company, I've worked for 3 different major staffing organizations, and they all called it the bullpen.
Okay.
And so it's like, at the stock market, at the stock exchange, how they're all in there and they're doing all their things. And so it's very inefficient to put recruiters in their own offices because
Right.
they can't work as a team that way. You don't hear, you've got to be able to talk to one another and say, especially when candidates call back in and can't remember who they talked to and, that kind of thing. So
that happens. Oof.
yeah. So that's the bullpen.
All right. Well, at least I know now. I kept saying bullpen to boardroom.
Yeah.
And I liked another. We did talk about this, and you think you know it all, or the way things are broken down. I like how you explained to me map and manage projects. As simple as that was, I keep saying, okay, it's the kind of like a scale. But how you said, like a map, it's all going over the place to get the same objective at the end.
Right. So you've got a project, and you can't just say, okay, here's our project and the goal, right? I mean, if you just throw that out there, what are your chances of it actually happening? Probably 2%, maybe.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But when you map a project, you're going from, okay, here's where we're going to start. You're breaking it down into bite-sized pieces.
That's what I like. I like how you said that.
You're mapping it from the start to the end, just kind of like, when you're getting directions on your GPS in your car,
right.
Like, okay, here's what we're going to do next. Okay, in 2.3 miles, we're going to turn right. And that's what we're going to do over here. This is when we're going to do this part. And so you can, if it's in bite-sized pieces, you can say, okay, you can measure success instead of measuring success at the very end,
right?
And then it's not like you wanted it to be, or you can map it out and say, this is, with everybody's, input, of course, and realistic expectations, having realistic expectations, but that's mapping. And then managing that process would be
right.
Managing the mapping, managing what you've broken down to, just kind of gauging the success and stepping in when somebody hits a wall or whatever. So.
And that's what it reminds me when you say that, because on the one job board for candidates for unemployment, they're always asking the same questions of what to do. And the state puts out like a flow chart, and this is what you do, but they don't understand it. So a lot of the questions are over and over. So something's happening there where they don't, but all they have to do is follow it. And they some of the candidates just do not, they don't understand.
I think a lot of people, and we're all human. And, we think we know the best way. And I like those kinds of people, actually, because, I mean, even if I butt heads with them sometimes, those are my favorite kind of people, because I can learn from them, and
right.
I can also, we can learn from each other. But, yeah, that's difficult.
I like that.
Not following the map, not following the map, not following the process. I mean, and you have to, you can't just say, okay, you're not following the instructions or the map.
Right.
It's more important to have an understanding of what's going on and what's going on behind the scenes that may make you, because you know this employee to make good and sound decisions.
Right.
So what's happening right here, and let's try to figure that out, and so that we can move forward.
That makes total sense, because the person, I always say, listen, just because they don't understand, I get what you're saying. It could give the person an idea to make a change, so then it helps. Listen, I'm not afraid. If I don't know something, I'll ask it.
I'm question queen.
I wanted to talk to you. I love sales. I really do. I know people call me crazy for that, because I like using social media. But when you talk about sales and practices, and you get to a team of salespeople, in this way the market is now, how do you go about that? Like, is it training? Do you give them tools to utilize, or that's where I was confused. How do you do that?
I think it goes back, it has to, there's no silver bullet.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be a combination of a lot of different things. It's coaching and mentoring if needed, because it is very discouraging out there right now, to some people, people that to be great closers,
Right.
are now struggling. And so let's figure out what that's about. Obviously, we know, and you have to, salespeople are, a different breed.
Right.
I am a salesperson at heart. You have to, I always thought I knew everything, and it took me a while to learn that no, I didn't. And so, so you just have to, coach and mentor and provide creative tools.
Right.
You've got to bring to that customer or prospect value. You don't just go in there and glad hand. Every time you meet with that customer, you've got to bring something of value. I mean, even if it's something small, again,
Right.
positioning yourself as the expert and as a resource, as opposed to an order taker. I just want your order. I don't want to learn about your company. I just want your money, and I want to place people here, even though I don't understand what you really need. I mean, I don't want to fail. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, a little bit, maybe a lot, but I want to understand. I have turned away business in the staffing world because they wanted to give me an order like too fast. And I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand what they needed or what their issues were, or, so I got to understand all of those things before I can succeed with you as my client. And I think the amount of respect that you get from that prospect when you are bringing value every time you visit, and you are asking meaningful questions that help you learn about their organization, learning about their organization, even if you think that is not affect me or the staffing or the workforce development that I want to work on, you never know. I mean, that person is talking about that for a reason. So, you might want to dig a little deeper into that and ask a lot of questions, but make sure you're listening to what they're not saying as well as you're listening to what they are saying.
All right. I like that saying. And Joseph said, that's my biggest weakness.
What is the biggest weakness?
When you were talking about the sales and, going into the clients, and I believe that's what he was talking about when you were saying about listening, the value, closing it. And what I've noticed is, with the sales, listen, over here again, if you're a staffing company, you can go to another company here and be in within probably an hour.
Oh, you can call them up on the phone and say, hey,
oh, here it is.
Try to work on your open orders.
Yes, Joseph said sales.
Oh, Joseph said sales, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because what I've learned is once you talk to them, you can tell if they're interested, because I'm not guaranteeing something right away. I'll tell them what I think I can do and show them the tools, what I do on videos and talk about.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
When you said, I know they're interested, you're not going in there in the beginning. I mean, this is my philosophy.
Right.
You go in there trying to gauge interest. You're kind of in order taker mode.
Right. But when you do that, like I've been to sales meetings where I've gone in and I listened to them when I was in the corporate world, and I just had to get that sale. That was all. It didn't matter. It didn't matter as long as that markup was there. In my mind, I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do here, bring back to the team. Oh my God. I knew in my mind that they were going to be the ones that are going to be really challenged. But it was just get that sale. Now, to provide, like you said before, is the biggest thing as I've learned is value. What's your value?
Right.
Do I want to bring you 100 people? No, but I might bring you 15 good qualified candidates. I don't want.
But if you spend time with them and you walk their floor and you do site surveys or not site surveys, but site visits, and you get to know them and the supervisors and what their weeks, what their gripes are, you might be able to get those 100. You never know. I mean, the more you know, I hate to keep harping on that, but the more you know, the better you will be in that organization, and you will end up being the sole provider.
That's you're right. Because like when I told you about the 2 companies manufacturing, I love them. It's awesome. I wish I could help them just like that. But I've been honest with them, saying, listen, I'm not going to promise something I can't deliver, and I think they respect that, of saying, being honest, because I don't want to be just like anybody else. I don't, because like you said, you could just call, and that's not what what we're about. I don't believe in that, because you can see it in their body language, the way they're talking. They're
always like this when you first walk in, right? So you got to break that barrier by, I hate to say this, but being their friend first. What's going on with you? I mean, get them to drop their defenses.
Yep,
and they'll start talking.
You can see the relief, like, okay, maybe,
And when you bring value pieces, like things that will actually help them, they begin to respect you, and they begin to trust you, and they begin to see you as a resource, and not just, another staffing agency, fly by night or not. They begin to trust you, and that's worth more than. Yeah.
What do you find with consulting, going into all these companies? Is there something that you focus on that you see some of the problems, if that makes sense? Like, is it something like a lot of companies not do wrong, but I guess that comes down to like processes, but I didn't know if there was one thing on your mind that you really like to go after and you see it that needs to be fixed.
Most of the time.
Right.
And I really get in deep with my customers, with my clients. I mean, not in deep, but like, I've got to understand. I can't help you if I don't understand. I mean, I can if it's something small, but if it's, so the one thing I would have to say would be the process optimization.
Right.
And change.
Mm-hmm. That's what I find here. If I say something new, like video resume screening, assessment, some people just jump back out and say, no, we can't do that. I'm like, why? It's the way to go. Just look at it. Savings. I said the time savings. Then people start saying, well, bias. And then I said, listen, it's bias on an interview. When you walk in, if somebody's biased, they don't like the way someone looks. They don't like the age. What is the difference? And I always say, wouldn't you rather just sit on your laptop and all of a sudden say, wow, okay, I like this person. I like the skill set. That's me, but it's a hard sell.
To the candidate, you mean?
No, to the candidates, but then I coach them, and you can see how nervous they are. But once they do it, I always have them do it first. Just don't dress up. You can just do it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to send that back to you. And I say, now, if you were the employer, would you hire this person? So it really helps to coach them. And I've had some candidates, and then I had, once the client received a couple video screens, they were like, wow, I like this.
Right.
It made it easier. But some companies just, well, you don't know if it's, how do you say it? They're going to
clam up and
yeah. And just say, like, when I always tell people they don't trust it because your personal information, I always say, send it to the cloud. You do that, you know who the cloud is? Nobody even knows. Send the information to the cloud if you're thinking of that. I think I have Jason here.
Yeah, so one of the biggest changes, you asked me earlier about changes, and what you just said made me think of this, but, video interviewing
right.
Is like radically on the scene. I mean, and that is the biggest time saver. I'm not saying that's all you do, but you can start there. I mean, it's so easy to do it right now, but you've got to capture the candidate pretty quick. So you want to do that, and you want to, make a connection with them visually, so that they feel like they know you. And so to do that through a Zoom call or whatever, right off the bat,
right,
is, such a big thing.
Joseph has two things here. He says, I've worked in staffing for 7 years, was great on the front end of things, but but back office and the sales aspect is my weakness. I have a great back office provider, but sales is my weakness. Here is why. Since leaving my prior employer agency, I have to form fresh relationships with companies I once staffed for. Do I know since my own company asked them for another site?
Do I now, since
my own company
ask them for another site?
Right. I think he's believing he must be doing sales in his own company, and then
maybe he has a non-compete?
Yeah, I believe that's got part of it. Joseph, you want to elaborate more, but I believe.
Yeah, Joseph, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Do you own your own company? Ask them for another site.
That makes sense.
I'm sorry there, Joseph. I just need to have a little more understanding. I don't want to answer your question wrong.
Yeah,
I can stab at it. It sounds to me like you might have a non-compete,
I think everybody's been through that in their time, and for me, that's a sore subject, but that's a long story on that one.
Let's not go down that road.
No, I'm not going down. When you go into the company, you got, the ROI, and you're looking, do you go into looking at the P&Ls, or, is that a big tool for you to look at?
I don't expect to be shown that information right off the bat, because that's really private information, and right. I want them to be comfortable with me before they share that. I do sign a confidentiality agreement and for them, saying right. that I will never share any secrets or any of your financial information or anything like that. But
right.
With certain clients, I have been privy to their P&Ls weekly. It's important if you're really getting down and dirty in their organization, getting your hands dirty, that you have that information so that you know what to coach on and what to work on. So looks like Joseph kicked back in. I wonder, visits and so on, I wonder if that makes clients worry I don't have the knowledge of what I have been staffing for them all along. Yes. On demand. Oh, yeah. He formed his own staffing agency.
Attempt to hire. It's basically what I've done myself, is start the own company. My non-compete's up, and then I'm going back after those clients. I believe that's what he's talking about there, because I've done that myself. Some of them I do, some of them I don't.
I don't think there's anything wrong with him talking about the fact that he worked for, or he staffed, for ABC company and this company and this company, and here were the results, and
right.
That kind of thing. I don't, unless his non-compete has specific verbiage in it that says you can't mention any of our clients' names, which would be really restricting. I mean, that would be unusual, but I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that this is who he staffed for in the past, and here was the outcome, and here's what he did. And, it might be good for him to put together a couple of case studies, right. And not, not mention the company name, but say, here was the problem. Here's what I did, and what, my team and I did, and here was the outcome, and, that kind of thing. Case studies are awesome.
And that's what he says. Yes, exactly. So we at least got the answer for him there, but that's what he's talking about. I got one more question for you. And it's kind of, I know it's a multiple things, but during right now with COVID, and we talked about strategies is for growth. Do you believe that just taking on as much companies you can get in, you think that's going to give you growth, or that can go against you, if that makes sense? Like you can go out now and pick up 5 companies just by calling. But do you think that hinders growth, or just, to me, it just wouldn't, because we can't provide everything that you're saying just to get out there and get a sale. That's it. But today's, do you see a harder to grow strategy? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep. So I believe that loyalty gives loyalty. Okay. So an example is, I was in Atlanta for many years, and so I do work all over the United States now, by the way. But so I had a client who had multiple competitors right around them. And so I committed to that client. They didn't know I committed to them, but I was feeding them all of my candidates, or the recruiters were. That's the way and the recruiters kept saying, but there's this company over here, and there's this. I'm like, this is a very contained area. They're giving me their loyalty by letting us be the sole provider. I can't not be loyal to them. So to answer your question, I think that it depends, I think, on, do you, like, this would be a great problem. Do you have too many candidates? I mean, I just don't think, I do not believe in just bringing in clients just for the sake of bringing in clients is the right thing to do, because that leaves you less time to focus on the ones that have the opportunity for you to grow. For you to grow. And if you, especially if it's the same type of position for different companies, the one that you have built the best relationship with and are loyal to will likely be loyal back. And that after dealing with them for so long. So I don't believe in bringing in 5 or 10 companies just because you can.
That's what I mean.
Because think about their perception of you after you do that. Okay, I signed that contract. This guy's not brought me anything.
Right.
What's his perception of your company now? And reputation right now is everything. It always is, but especially now.
And that's what I believe in a lot. And this is Steve I was telling you about. He's in Utah. And one thing I like what Steve did is they came up with is they needed forklift drivers, a lot of them, right? And, we all know that the rates say $17, but he got a hold of a whole team of forklift drivers that wanted to make $18 to $20. Period. Mm-hmm. That's it. He had like 25 of them. He went out to companies and put it on there, and the companies just jumped because he skill marketed all their candidates, know. And listen, he was telling the truth. This is what they want. This is it.
If you want them, this is what you got to do. Yeah. And you can't just walk into a company and say, this is a deal. If you take them or leave them. You got to have a relationship somewhat with, that company, I think. Maybe not in this market. You could probably get away with it, but, but he probably has a good relationship with those folks. And
he does everything that we've talked about before. He'll get up and do his live videos at 5 a.m. at trying to find people at work for the first shift, 11 o'clock at night, hitting those 11 o'clock people that get off, from 3 to 11.
Right.
And that's a big success because, like we talked about, getting your name out there. And he goes right too. So did I, right outside the company and do a live.
Right.
And his customers, they'll come right at him and say, wow, he's got such a social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
built his brand, right? Yep. They know who he is. Yeah.
He's got all his recruiters. Like this afternoon, he puts on 5 or 6 of them throughout all the branches. Mm-hmm. And they just talk, and companies reach out. And that's where I told you I believe in honesty. Do you trust me? You can tell by the person, Exactly. And Joseph's got one more thing. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate taking your time to make these videos. Okay. Thanks, Joseph.
Thanks, Joseph. Hope I was able to help.
Oh, I'll tell you. All right. Wow. 53 minutes. All right. I always like doing this towards the end, but if I would just want to explain what you do again, what you offer, where you're at, and people how to reach you, because I can't thank you enough, Melissa. To take your time. I enjoy it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it gives me training, because it does, just reaching out. Listen, I don't have webinars, but I learn a lot from people like yourself that have so much experience, so I think that networking is great.
Absolutely. And I appreciate being invited. So, so what I do is, like the ticker tape thing there says, sales and operations, have got to intertwine. Consulting with small to medium or large organizations that have a couple problems with a couple branches, understanding what the gaps are and why their growth is stagnating and what they can do about it. I mean, you've got to have several foundations or pillars there
Right.
supporting your foundation. And if one of them is a little crumbly and not quite, then you've got to build that up. And so I go in based on my experience and help them with that. And, the difference between me and maybe some other consultants is I really, and if you don't, I do small projects too, but the clients that I help the most are the ones that want me to audit.
Right.
Not audit, that's not a really good word, but evaluate. What's going on here? Why are we stagnating?
I like that word. Versus.
So growth stagnation, prevention of growth stagnation. I mean, that's really scary, right?
Right.
Affecting change, creating buy-in, making sure their operations are as efficient as possible, because what I've seen in a lot of my clients is just total inefficiency.
Right.
No rhyme or reason. Everybody's, like you were talking about, everybody's doing their own thing. And, that's just not effective. I mean, but there's a fine line. You've got to allow them to be themselves, and they've got to feel valued, all of those things. So there's a very fine line between that and your expertise is staffing.
Right.
My expertise is also staffing, but I've done a lot of very unique things inside staffing and had a lot of really good success and that kind of thing in building my operations. So, if you're customer centric, then you can build that operation. What is it going to take, to make this happen? And it's typically efficiencies. And so I do a lot of different things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I like to talk to different people to understand what it is, and usually what they're telling me, it's something totally different, than they think the problem is one thing.
Right.
And then once we talk a little bit, I say, well, what if, and it doesn't cost anything to talk. So
I like that one.
Yeah. So, I will talk to you for 30 minutes or so, and it doesn't cost you anything. I can also do an audit or evaluation and make recommendations, and that's not super expensive either. And, and then I also do the implementation of the new processes, coaching and mentoring on if you're struggling. Sales is a very big thing for me. And because I'm, like I said, a salesperson at heart. And so creating sales programs, sales strategies, business development strategies, all of those things, mapping things out, and, SOPs, which is a dirty word, and I'm sorry, but there is a way to implement SOPs without making people feel like, SOPs.
And as you're talking, it's amazing, but I already see what I wanted to say is I don't ever shut up here, but is a third party coming in. I feel if you were coming with a team, I think one-on-one and as a team, you're going to hear something different than what, say, upper management is going to hear. I think it would be very productive because they're going to be more open with you.
Tell me things that they wouldn't tell.
Yes.
Yeah, especially since I've told them, and I never dishonor that.
Right.
If I tell you I'm not going to bring everything we talk about on this call or in this Zoom room,
right,
it's 100% confidential, and nobody else will ever hear it.
I could picture my team back then. They would all be going, Dave, don't listen, or this, Dave, don't listen, or just they would bring up everything. But like you said, if somebody doesn't do that, that could be like everybody doing something different, a different way. Well, this person, no, I don't believe that works. But if they're all on the same table, I think that really helps for a third party to come in like that.
Yeah. well, I've been betrayed before by somebody that said that they weren't going to, and I know how that feels. And it's been a while ago. And you know, I'm a big believer in confidentiality, always doing what I say I'm going to do, and winning trust. And you have to win trust. You don't get it just instantly. So
I like that. I see all these key words. The most word, and we're going to close up here, is the maps. I'm sorry, you're the map lady. The map. Well,
map and managing strategy.
Yeah, I'm going to remember you as a map.
That is one of my favorite things to do, is to, you know, map and manage projects, you know, and I love to write. And if you read any of my articles on, even though they're pretty basic, I've written all of those. And so I like to write content and blogs for companies, for staffing agencies.
Oh, that's got to be sharp.
And so I do that quite a bit. And so, you know, I can pretty much, you know, but it's all about the customer again, you know, and the candidate now. I mean, because, you know, when I first started, it was a company market, you know, we would arrive at the office and there would be 30 people wrapped around our building, you know, candidates, you know, so you have to treat your candidates and your associates and your talent now like you treat your customers.
That's what I did. I read an article about that, and that was a big, treat them like gold, respect, integrity, teach them everything. And
they deserve every bit of that, 100%, all the time.
No, I can imagine, but all right. I want to thank you so much. And
you're very welcome. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, and thanks everybody for commenting. And I'm going to let you go, but going to end it with this video here, and I'm going to talk to you right after this.
Okay.